You're looking pretty spiffy here.
I had to dress up for you.
Okay, well, this is a piece of trash that I found.
I think you look mighty spiffy yourself.
Okay, that's fine.
So first, thanks for giving us the opportunity to do this. I think for purposes of this interview, what I'm really interested in covering, among other topics, are some of the key relationships in your life that are really responsible for your success, your mindset, your unrelenting work ethic, as well as some of the pivotal moments in your business's evolution that you needed to
I don't remember. I won't remember, but that's okay.
Where you needed to adjust in order to not only survive, but then ultimately thrive. You said something not too long ago, or maybe it was a while back, that I thought was kind of funny. You said, most people work all their lives to retire to play golf. I played golf all my life to retire to work, which I thought was so great. One of the kind of key moments early on in your business's growth was mid-'80s. I think your young CFO comes in for a meeting with you where he thinks it's actually to resign. Tell about what actually happened though in that meeting.
We had a time back in the mid-'80s that I was playing too much golf and not playing enough business, I suppose. But you have people that run your business and you let them run your business. And anyway, I ended up with well over $100 million of completion contracts that I had to do, that I had committed for, and there's no way in the world that those projects weren't going to yield that or anything else. So I had a situation where I had to go to the banks and spend my time in the workout room and do all the things that are very unpleasant for somebody to do. When we finished with it, one of the banks had never had anybody that handled that situation well and asked me to come and do some work for them, which I ultimately didn't do because I didn't think I should. And anyway, I ended up negotiating out of that. But a lot of that was frankly due to a fellow named Ross Johnson. Ross Johnson was the head of Nabisco Brands, and Ross was you've seen Barbarians at the Gate, in which the movie portraying Ross's situations. Ross Johnson couldn't have been nicer. I had a problem and he helped me with it. He brought his attorneys from White and Case, and we got through it. I paid everything off personally that was done, and it was not a pleasant time in my life, but probably one of the times when you really learn something about yourself and about other things that sort of make you move on forward. It was a great learning lesson, but it was a lot of millions of dollars of learning to get there.
What do you think was the most challenging part for you of that period?
Oh, the most challenging part is I was a golfer, and I really I'd never been in any kind of a situation like that, and I didn't know where to go. And I had a fellow from a Toronto Dominion Bank named Dick Thompson, who was a friend of mine at Lost Tree, said, "You need to meet Ross Johnson." So he set up a meeting with Ross, and I went up and talked with Ross. And Ross said, he says, "We need to bring White and Case in here." And we brought White and Case in here. And White and Case worked with me with the banks. Not a lot of fun to do that kind of stuff, but I got through it. And it's when you get through it, you get it done with it, and you say, okay, we're just not going to do something like that again. I'm not going to let anybody get me in that position again. And I mean, you were talking about my CFO walking in. Well, the CFO didn't walk in. The CFO didn't have his job anymore, or CEO. He didn't have his job anymore because it was, he's the one who did that. And but it was not a pleasant time. But then that was right around the time of the Masters in '86.
Right.
And everybody kept saying, "Oh, how can you play golf with all this hanging over your head?" And I said, "Hey, that's what I do, is play golf." And so I've never let business bother what I did on the outside. I always felt like if I treated people right and I did what I thought was the right thing, it would all come out in the end. I think that some of that stuff I would have been financially a lot better off today if some of that stuff hadn't happened. But it happened. And when it happened, you do the make the best out of it as you can.
And it's a great learning experience.
It's
as
not
well.
not a learning experience you'd like to
Right.
have, but it was a great learning experience.
What do you think you learned from it?
I learned that if I'm going to get myself involved in things that are involved with a lot of money, then I better know what's going on. I mean, it was basically I built 2 golf courses, but these 2 particular golf courses, we took a larger stake in it as a company. Probably shouldn't have. The economy at the time didn't fare very well, and as a result, the projects didn't do particularly well. Actually, both projects are very successful today, but that's always the second owner always gets a nice shot.
Right. The Great Recession, during that period, the U.S. golf course design business just kind of came to a halt. I think predating that, 500 courses annually in the U.S. were being built.
Oh yeah.
Now,
right around 2007, it just stopped. We were doing probably in the early 2000s. We were probably doing 35 golf courses a year. There's a few golf courses that we're doing, but certainly we had to go overseas, and we worked in China, we worked in Japan, we worked in Korea, we worked in Russia, we worked in the Middle East, we worked at all kinds of places, South Africa. South Africa was actually a little bit prior to that, but we worked at all those places because that's where we had to go for business. And would I prefer to do my work in the United States? Yeah, I'd much rather have a 1-hour flight or a 2-hour flight than a 17-hour flight, absolutely. But I've actually enjoyed it. I've enjoyed going overseas because the different cultures, the different people that you meet, the different things that you learn about. You go to China and you find out they do business so much different than you do, or you go to Russia and they do business so much different than you do. It's a learning experience. It's actually kind of fun.
Design, I think pre-recession golf course design was 80% of your business. Now marketing makes up as much as 50% of the business.
Probably even more.
What do you think made you recognize, at that point that you needed to look into other areas of business?
Well, I think that if you look at what happened, I go back to 2007, I believe it was, when I sold 49% of my company to Howard Milstein and the Immigrant Bank, and brought Howard in. And at that point in time, that's when the bank problems occurred and everything went south. At that time, we were doing a fairly large number of golf courses at the time, which we just talked about, and it just dried up. And so we said, well, what is the future of this company? Well, prior to that time, in my marketing area, I tried to limit what we did. I did what I enjoyed doing because we had plenty of business. We could pretty much pick and choose what we wanted to do. All of a sudden, our business dried up. Howard had bought a company that was drying up. And I said, hey, I didn't like this at all. And so I said, we sort of changed directions and said, we better become a licensing company and a branding company. And I had the opportunity to do that. I just hadn't bothered to do it. And so the last 6, 7, 8 years, that's what we've been doing. And it's starting to turn a lot of things around. And now the golf course business is coming back too. I used to go to the golf course. I played golf. I came back. I made a name. I got people wanted me to do their golf course. That was nothing but smiles on the face. And then all of a sudden I said, well, I got to do something else. So I've been, for the last couple of years or so, I've been going to see CEOs of this company, these companies, different companies of different kinds of things, which has been a great learning experience, and it's been fun to do. I've gotten myself involved in going to sell ice cream and
it's having a lot of success. Isn't that the last thing you need, though? That's like your vice, I thought, ice cream.
oh yeah, I know. That's what's right here, right now. That cost me 20 pounds.
Yeah, right.
And I need to get that off, but it has cost me 20 pounds. But anyway, I've enjoyed that, and I've enjoyed going to meet sort of, you might say, the captains of industry, and doing different things, to sit down with these different companies and say, this is what this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do, and this is a brand we're trying to do, and we're trying to develop. And it happened largely because of our development with Arizona, with our lemonade. Lemonade, we started that with Don Bottaggio of Arizona, and he had Arnold Palmer in for his lemonade and iced tea. And so he wanted to do lemonade with us. But Arnold's is basically a tea product, and Mars is a lemonade product. And so I called Arnold, and I didn't want to step on his toes, and said, "Do you have an objection if I'm involved in this situation?" And he was fine. He's been a great friend for many years. We compete, of course. We've always competed, but he was a great friend about it. And he said, "No, go ahead." And so we did, and we had great success until all the soft drink markets started to soften a little bit, whether they're going to have sugar in it or whether they're going to have artificial sweeteners and so forth and so on. And so it's softened a bit, but still, because of that introduction of going into the markets and being successful, is how we got into the stores with wine and with ice cream. So it's been a whole different ball game for me. I haven't had to make any 4-foot putts here, but I haven't missed any. So that's pretty good.
I was talking to one of your close friends the other day who said about you, Jack couldn't get himself to stop working if he wanted to. Why do you keep working?
I enjoy it. First of all, I'm pretty loyal to my people. People that work for me have been with me for a lot of years. Probably maybe to a fault. A lot of people take the Jack Welch approach of firing 10% of his people every year. I just never believed in that, although he's probably right. My feeling is I've just been loyal to my people, and during the economy, when the economy dropped and fell off the face in about 2007, I just didn't think during that next 5 years that everybody got a very fair shake. So I want to make sure they get a fair shake. And so I enjoyed being part of trying to recover my own business, figure out ways that my business be successful other than being a golf course design business. I mean, certainly it's not going to be a business because I play golf anymore. But it's been fun. It's been enjoyable.
Your dad, and actually your dad's dad, I don't know if you recall this story, but your dad's dad once took your father and his 2 brothers to see him making boilers.
Yeah, he used to work for, my mother's father worked for the C&O, or I think he probably worked for the B&O. I think my dad's father worked for the C&O Railroad. So they were both working on the railroad. One was a conductor, and my dad's father was a boilermaker. And so he took the boys down, and 100 and whatever degree temperature it was that he was making these boilers. And he said, "Guys, I want you to see what I do, because I never want you to have to do this." So they I got 2 pharmacists and a dentist out of those 3 boys, and all went to professional school. They all worked their way through school, and they sort of found the American dream and moved forward.
What do you remember from your dad's pharmacies?
Well, I remembered I didn't like them. And what I mean,
why not?
Well, because from the time I was 10 years old, I worked at them.
Oh, okay, got it.
Every time I hated Christmas, holidays, and summer, because all my friends were out playing. I was in there being a stock boy or working in the drugstore, or became an apprentice pharmacist. I went to college to be.
But I was going to say, you went to your first 3 years at college were studying
my
pre-pharmacy.
first 3 years for pharmacy. But anyway, that's okay. But I've spent the time. Then my dad finally figured out that I had a little bit of talent playing golf. So we'd start getting off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon type thing, and we'd go play golf. Of course, in Ohio back in those days, it was light till 9:30 at night. So, we could play 18 holes and do whatever we want, and still had a pretty good day of golf. And I was like a lot of kids. I said, well, my dad was a pharmacist. Why wouldn't I be a pharmacist? I would follow my dad's footsteps. My dad was my best friend and my idol, and I just sort of wanted to follow after my dad. So, and then he talked after 3 years of college. He talked me out of being a pharmacist. I was getting ready to go to pharmacy school, and he said, "Jack, you can't use your golf behind a counter." He says, "I don't think it's the best place for you to be." And he said, so I went over and I switched over to the business school, and of course then I went about a year and a half at the business school, and turned pro. And I didn't end up finishing. I had plenty of hours to finish, but because I didn't have the right combination of courses, but I went and played golf, and I kind of liked that. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time, and I found that it was something that I did reasonably well, and something that was very rewarding. I was able to provide. I mean, from the day I got married, which Barbara and I were 20 years old when we got married. The day we got married, I got off my dad's back, and my wedding present was I think it was a $1,200 down payment on a house, because he hated renting houses, and so I think he gave me that as a down payment, and that was the last thing I got from my dad from ever. And but he always was my mentor no matter what. So it was kind of fun to be able to and I was selling insurance at the time. I was actually the youngest person that ever was licensed in the state of Ohio to sell insurance. I got licensed on my 20th birthday, and you had to be 21 to be licensed. But they made an exception for me, and I got at 20.
And you did really well doing that too.
I sold insurance, but I had a hard time going into my fraternity or through Ohio State and selling insurance to 20-year-old kids about, oh, you need to protect yourself for life. Right. I just didn't have my heart in that. That's what I did. Then I got Well, I got involved in that. Then I got involved in another side of the insurance business, where I did some work for a company called Parker and Company, and they handled national airlines and Pan Am and some other airlines. So I did little PR type things, and but I was still in the insurance business. So in 1961, when I turned pro, I was doing all right. Financially, I was doing all right. I certainly didn't turn pro from a financial standpoint. I turned pro because I wanted to be the best I could be at playing golf. And I couldn't do that unless I played against the best, and the only way to do that was to turn pro. So I kept my insurance business for a while, and with a friend of mine named Bob Hogue, we did some things together. And it eventually I let it dissipate after time. But it was a great learning experience, but I found out that that's not what I wanted to do. And so so I played golf for 50 years, but also played during that period of time. I had lots of different things that I did. And I started my golf course design business. We got into clothing and other things that all were a natural extension. And it's been a great journey.
He passed away from pancreatic and liver cancer, and I read that you said his passing was really allowed you to gain perspective, see the big picture. What about that?
Well, my dad was 56. He was far too young. I was 30 years old when he passed. I just turned 30, and I look back on it and I said, my dad sort of lived for what I did. I was sort of, my sister, I think, got the short end of the stick. She sort of was in the background, and my dad spent his time with me. And my mother was great. She was very supportive, and as was my sister. My sister was never jealous. She was terrific, still is. And we sort of spent our time together, grew together, and I felt like, I wanted to be the best I could be, but I don't think when my dad passed that I'd really given him my best.
Why?
I think I could have played a lot better. I could have worked harder. I think you can always work harder. I mean, did I work hard? Yes. But could I have worked harder? Yes. And when he passed, I said, "Oh, here he is. I'm just in the start of my career, and yet my father's gone, who really was what he is what he lived for." And so I sort of rededicated myself a little bit that year, and I think my golf game was kind of shabby, actually, and in my opinion, although I don't remember, but I probably won several tournaments. But I got back in 1970, and then I won the British Open that year at St. Andrews, and that was sort of saying, Dad, I think I made you proud here. So that was good.
Why have you said you don't think you fully matured until he passed away?
Well, I don't think anybody ever really reaches their potential. If you ever reach your potential, you can only go downhill. So I've always felt like no matter what I've done all my life, I've tried to climb a mountain. And I never wanted to get to the other side of that mountain. I always wanted to I kept hoping the mountain was taller, and I just had to keep climbing it. And that's what I tried to do with my golf game. I've tried to do it in my business career. I've tried to do it with my kids, raising my kids, trying to do things that make them better and make me better and do things that are better. I don't know if that's my German background or what it is, but it's I've always enjoyed that ability or something that drives me inside to try to be better. And when I said, maybe by my dad's passing, it allowed me to sort of grow up in some ways and say, you really sort of goofed off here. You didn't really work as hard as you should have. You thought maybe your dad would be around for a long time to share this with you, and you could share it with him. But I played golf for a long time as it relates to playing tournament golf. But still, I would have liked to have concentrated a little bit of it earlier with him.
How do you think he impacted how you've been as a father?
Well, I think that he impacted a lot. My mother, and I think Barbara's parents impacted a lot. Barbara's parents, her maiden name was Bash, which is again a German thing. They came from the south end of Columbus, which was a German side of town. Matter of fact, her father taught my dad in high school math, and they had good values, and Barb's father never made more than $6,000 a year in his lifetime teaching school, yet she never wanted for anything. Her father put away $1 a week the day she was born for her wedding. Now, we went to Scioto Country Club, which is not a cheap place. We had a wedding with 500 people that he paid for with $1 a week from the time she was born. That's pretty neat.
That's amazing. Your wife, Barbara, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but the first time you met her, did she actually set you up with one of her friends instead?
Well, Barbara was a pretty popular girl. She was sort of a, popular girl in her high school, and when it came to campus, the girl I was dating at the time was a popular girl from our school. They were friends from different sororities that got to know each other and done all that stuff. And but the girl I was dating, we all decided we were going to go date around in college, and if we ended up at the end of college, fine. If we didn't, that's fine. And so anyway, Mary was her name. She introduced me to Barbara. I walked Barbara down to where she was working at the bacteriology building, and she was going to a class, and she was working a little bit to try to pay her way through school. And so I called her up that night and asked her if she'd like to go out. I couldn't work me on her schedule. So she set me up in the meantime with a couple of gals she knew I wouldn't like.
Oh, okay. That's how this works.
That's the way it goes. And she was right. Oh, they were actually nice girls, but they were not good. They were somebody I wouldn't want to go any further with. And so then finally Barbara worked me into her schedule after 2 or 3 weeks, and then of course we've dated ever since.
How do you think your life would be different if you never met her?
Oh, I'm sure it'd been very different. I don't think there's any question about it. Barbara is one of the unique individuals who realized that when she first met me, she had no idea I was going to be a golf professional, neither did I. Thought I was going to be a pharmacist. But she also realized that when I started playing golf that I had something a little special as a talent. And she said that she sort of knew that for me to be successful, she had to sort of make sure that I sort of dominated the scene, and she was very supportive. She stayed in the background. She didn't want to get in front of things, and because she said, and I always loved what there was a line that Winnie Palmer, who was one of Barbara's best friends,
Arnold Palmer's wife.
Arnold Palmer's wife, yeah. And Barbara and Winnie were very, very close, and Winnie said, she said, I would get mad at Arnold on Tuesday, and I'd be afraid to say anything to him because I didn't want to bother his golf game and make him get his mind off his game of the week. And by the time Sunday rolled around, I forgot what I was mad about, so I just forgot it. It's a pretty good way to do it. And Barbara was much the same. She sort of, if she got irritated with me, she just sort of kept her mouth shut. She needed to support what I did, or she had somebody coming in town, or somebody was doing this or something. She always made sure that whatever I was doing, was never. It was always first. I mean, she would find it if there was an article in the newspaper, it was a bad article. She'd make sure she cut that thing out of the newspaper and put it in the trash can before I could ever see the newspaper. So she never let me see stuff like that. And so she was great. She still is.
She took it to the extremes too. I mean, in some situations to protect you. I think it was the 1967 Sahara Invitational in Las Vegas. Tell about what happens in the middle of the night there.
Oh, well, Barbara, I shot 62 on Saturday, and Barbara's pregnant. And Barbara had a miscarriage during the middle of the night. She didn't tell me. She did take it to an extreme. She ended up finally waking me up about 8 o'clock in the morning, and she says, I think I'm having a miscarriage. I think I need to go to the hospital. I mean, she had been there most of the night. But she knew she wanted to make sure I got a good night's sleep. She didn't care about herself. She wanted to make sure I got a night's sleep, took her to the hospital, and of course, then I went out, I won the golf tournament, came back, picked her up, and then I was Mr. Mom for about the next week, taking care of her. But it was, she's always been great that way. And we've had 5 kids, 22 grandkids, and she is, she spends her time being Mimi, which is what they call her, being a great grandmother and taking care of her kids. And she was great. And she raised our kids. I mean, she always took care of the discipline with our kids. If one of the kids were bad and so forth and so on, she didn't want me coming home if I had been gone for a week to come home and discipline the kids. She said she wanted me to, when I came home, that the kids were always my friend and I was always my friend. And she didn't want to, because when you're away for a while, it's hard sometimes. And so she's been fantastic. So anyway, that went on with golf, and then when I did my design business, she knew that that's what I was doing as well as I was playing golf. She sort of kept in the background. Then about the last 10 or 11 years, we got involved in charities. And so 11 years ago, we got involved in the Nicklas Children's Healthcare Foundation. It happened when the Honda tournament came up to the Palm Beach areas, and the people from the Honda tournament came to us and says, she says, you know the Palm Beach area better than we do. We've always supported children's charities. What do you think we ought to do in the Palm Beach area?
Right.
And so I looked at Barbara and I said, well, do you want to go for this? And so that's when we started our healthcare foundation. And Honda was sort of the catalyst to get us started. We started the foundation, and we've now, I don't know what we've raised. We've raised
more than $35 million.
We've raised a lot of money, and we've raised a lot of money in a very soft way, and basically it's been the other way around now. Now I support her, which has been, I've had a blast doing it. I've had a lot of fun doing it. It's great. She's.
What's it been like for her?
Oh, she loves it. I mean, she just loves it. I said, Barbara, we don't do anything else, which is sometimes the truth, because I'm still working a lot. And when I come home, now we still got charity events to go to. Now, I said, I'd love to have a dinner at home sometime.
Right.
We used to be dinner at home 6 nights a week, and now we're probably out maybe 5 nights a week. So it's a little bit more difficult, but it's keeping us young, it's keeping us active, and we're really making a difference with some kids, and that's fun.
Not too long ago, Miami Children's Hospital was renamed Nicklas Children's Hospital. Right. To coincide with the pledge you made to the hospital for some $60 million.
Yeah, we made a pledge that we can't afford, so the pledge is not from us. The pledge, well, we put 15 from our foundation, which we'd raised over time, but then the other 45, I have to go out and raise.
Right.
And I remember the other day I sat down with a gentleman that I wanted to raise some money from. And I sat down with him and I said, this is the first time I've done this. And I said, this is not my cup of tea. And I said, I need your help. And I said, I want you to help me through this. He had written a book on how to fundraise.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't want to name the people, but anyway, and he had written a book on it, and so he knew what I was doing right or what I was doing wrong. Anyway, we had a great conversation, we had a great thing, and he's supporting us. But it's kind of fun. I've never gone in and asked people for money before.
Does that make you uncomfortable?
Sure, it makes me uncomfortable because it's something I've never done.
But it's for a good cause.
But I look at what it does, and what the result is. And we have the Nicklas Children's Hospital has now the main hospital, 8 outpatient clinics, and recently opened a pediatric center at the Jupiter Medical Center, which is also Nicklas Children's with the George family. And it's been very rewarding to see these things happen, and to have mothers come back to Barbara and say, you don't know what you've done for my family. Well, I like to share in that. I enjoy sharing in that and being part of something that's helped somebody else.
What are some of the conversations that Barbara's told you about?
Well, most of it, because what we first did is we did an outpatient clinic in the Palm Beach area. It's actually North Palm Beach area. And that was about a 23,000 square foot facility that has, I think, about 8 subspecialists, and it has all rehabilitation and rehab and all kinds of places where we can take care of kids with different illnesses she's had several mothers come to us, and one in particular came to her in the grocery store the other day. She says, you don't know what you've done for my family. She says, you've saved me 3 days a week or 3 days a month. And she says, what do you mean? She says, we had to go to Miami to take our child down for treatment. He said, and we'd have to rent a van, and the van would take us to Miami, and now they'd be too tired for treatment that day, so they had their treatment the next day. They have their treatment, then they're too tired to come home, so they came home the next day. So all of a sudden now they can do it all in an hour right there in North Palm Beach. Well, not only does it that, but what does it do to the family? I mean, you've got a mother or a father who's working, and they're taking 3 days out of that. It's hard for them to do their job. So it works very, very well. And to have these outpatient centers up and down the southeast coast associated with our hospital has made a big difference to a lot of families. And we know 91% of all your health care is done outside the hospital. And so if you're doing that, then most people are going to get care. You take the very sick will go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. If that's needed, then you do it. But it's been actually a real blessing to a lot of people and a real rewarding to us.
You ran track, became the fastest kid in the school. You were a switch hitting catcher in baseball. You played quarterback and kicker and football, forward, and basketball. How all-consuming was sport for you?
Well, my dad was a 13 letterman, or no, let's say he might be 11. 11 letters in 3 years of high school, which is 3 in basketball, baseball, and football. And he started the golf team. And he started the golf team in his junior year. So he was good. He's also a city tennis champion. So my dad was a very good athlete. So my dad introduced me to everything. And I've always believed that your body is best developed by playing more than one sport. I've never been a gym rat. I've always gone to play a sport to develop my body in different ways. I mean, we skied. I water skied, then I snow skied, hunted, fished. I was recruited at Ohio State for basketball, and not that I probably would have played, but I was at least good enough to be recruited.
Right.
And
by Ohio State.
By Ohio State,
Right.
And they won the NCAA when I was there, and so I've always felt like developing your body was good. So I've always run a little bit all my life, and I hate seeing what the kids do today. I hate seeing a kid saying, "Oh, you got to specialize at age 8 years old, or you'll never get to the next level." Well, they're not going to get. 99% of them aren't going to get to the next level anyway. Enjoy your sports, enjoy your things, and of course, I think sports is such a great tool for kids. I mean, you learn to not only have team sports, where you learn to get along with people, learn how to share, learn how to enjoy victory, and learn how to lose. You learn how to accept defeat. You learn to do all the things. And then individual sports, which are, even more difficult because you got everything on your shoulders that it's all on you. I happen to like that, but and I happen to like team sports too. But I happen to like being responsible for what I had to do and be responsible for winning or responsible for losing. I always thought that was fun.
Explain how your dad's fractured ankle was basically responsible for getting you into ball.
I remember him carrying him in after he played volleyball, and his ankle was all swollen up, and they carried him in. He went down, and they did not find a break in it. Well, he didn't do anything more with it, and he kept getting worse and worse, and finally the doctor said, Charlie, he says, I think your ankle's all full of bone spurs and arthritis, and he says, we need to fix it. So he ended up having 3 operations, and they ended up fusing his ankle. And so he could move this way, but he had no lateral movement. And the doctor said, he'd been working for the last 15 years as a pharmacist. He says, you need to take up something again that you have to walk. So we moved from the campus to Upper Arlington. We moved to Upper Arlington. He opened another drugstore out in Upper Arlington. And he took up golf, but he couldn't make a game. So he took me, and I carried the bag. And, we'd go and we'd walk one hole, and then I would chip and putt and hit a few little shots and have fun while he was resting, and then we'd play another hole and we'd do this thing. And finally he said to me as we got near June, he said, when school's out, he says, would you like to learn how to play this game? Which is what he did with every sport with me. And I said, sure. So I went to a class just like every other kid at the club. We had about 60 kids that came to a Friday morning class for Jack Grout. And that was Jack Grout's first year at Scioto Country Club. Jack was 40 years old at the time. Wonderful guy. And after about a week or two, Jack would turn, he says, Jackie boy, come out here and show these kids how to hit the ball in the air. Jackie boy, come out here and show these kids how to take a divot.
After a week or two.
Yeah, he saw that I was doing things pretty quickly. And so...
quick thing, tell me if this is true. As I read about you that as a young man, your practice schedule as it pertained to golf was that you'd hit the driving range for 3 to 4 hours, then play 2 rounds of golf, and then putt until dark.
But that's why I ended up playing golf. I didn't need somebody to throw the ball back to me. I didn't need somebody to guard me. I didn't need somebody to hit the ball across the net to me. I could go to the golf course and do what I wanted to do and spend as much time as I wanted. So what I would do is play a couple holes down to the clubhouse, and I'd had to play before 8 o'clock. Juniors had to play before 8 o'clock. So I'd go play before 8 o'clock, play 18 holes. Then I'd come in. We couldn't play till after 4 o'clock then. And so I'd go practice during the afternoon. And then at 4 o'clock, I'd go back out and play another 18 holes. And then it would get dark. And, my dad... Between that and my dad had me in the drugstore, my dad finally figured out I was better out there than I was at the drugstore. But it was fun.
And you didn't limit yourself to just good weather when it came to playing golf. Explain how you'd practice in the snow and what your coach built.
We had a little Quonset hut, half Quonset hut was put up, and they put a little gas heater in it. They took the temperature up to maybe 55 degrees. And so I had that all winter. And what I would do is that in those days, everybody had little practice bags. And the members would have their little marking on their golf balls. So I would borrow everybody's practice bag and hit the balls out in the snow. And then when the snow melted, we'd go out and pick them up and we'd separate them again, and then I'd do it again. But that's what I did. Bobby
Jones, what was the experience like for you having him come and see you play as an amateur?
Well, I grew up at Scioto. Bobby Jones won the U.S. Open at Scioto 1926. Obviously long before I was born. But my father watched him play when he was only 12 years old when he watched him play. He became my dad's idol. And so there was a lot of members that were at Scioto that were there when I started playing golf in 1950 that watched Jones play. So I always heard, oh, Bobby Jones hit it here, Bobby Jones hit it there, Jones played from here. Oh, he never parred this hole during the Open. 9th hole was par 3, bogeyed it 4 times. Had a big elm tree that overhung the right side of the green, and he kept hitting the tree because he wasn't cutting it in, he was hooking it in, and his hook got stuck in the tree. Well, anyway, long story short is that when I started playing golf, that's what I'd heard. And so in 1955, I was 15 years old. And I qualified for the National Amateur. It was at the James River course, the Country Club of Virginia, and in Richmond, Virginia. And so I went down, and on the last practice round, I hit a shot into the 18th green. It was a long par 4. And there's a gentleman who was over in a cart beside the green. And I got a feeling he went like, he waved at me like this. And he introduced himself as Bobby Jones. And so and he said, I've been here all afternoon, young man. Or not all afternoon, I've been here for an hour or two. He says, only 3 people have reached this green. He says, that was nice shots you played in there. I said, thank you very much, sir. And so.
And you knew it was Bobby Jones.
By that time I did. And so that night, he spoke at our banquet. And at that point in time, he was walking with sort of canes. That's what he could walk with because he had paralysis in his neck. And of course, it obviously destroyed his whole system and ability to walk. I don't know exactly what the disease was, but he couldn't walk. And anyway, he came down to me after the dinner and he said, Jack, just a second. He says, I want to come out and watch you tomorrow, play a few holes, if you don't mind. I said, oh, no, sir, Mr. Jones, that'd be very nice. So I kept looking over my shoulder, where's Bobby Jones? Where's Bobby Jones? And I was playing Bob Gardner, who turned out I'd played in the Eisenhower Trophy and the Walker Cup with Gardner later on. And anyway, I had Bob Gardner down after 10 holes. And all of a sudden, down the 10th hole comes this cart. And here's Bobby Jones coming to watch me play golf. I'm a 15-year-old kid, okay? I went bogey, bogey, double bogey, lost all 3 holes. He turned to my dad and he said, Charlie, I don't believe I'm doing Jack much good. He says, I think I'll get out of here. Anyway, I got back to even. I went from 1 up to 2 down, got back to even, and lost the 18th hole. So I lost that match. And I didn't see Jones again for 2 more years. And he came to the U.S. JC Junior tournament. It happened to be at Ohio State. And he was representing Coca-Cola at the time. And he came out and watched me play a couple of holes there. And I won the tournament. He presented me the trophy. And another couple of years passed. I qualified for the Masters. So I was 19 years old. And I went down to Augusta. And in my locker was a little note. And said, Jack, welcome to the Masters. Welcome to Augusta. It says, I'd like to invite you and your father to come down to my cabin and talk to me, which we did. So every year that little note was in my locker, and I went down there, and every year we would have a great conversation. He'd start telling me a lot of his little things that happened to him and things that made him a better player and why this, why that, and so forth. He took a great interest in me, and I was very flattered by that, and I was. And he couldn't have been nicer. He was a wonderful guy.
And you apparently got some of the best advice you've ever received in golf from Bobby Jones through your father at the 1961 Masters.
Okay, I'm not sure what that was.
With regards to your swing and the ability to change your swing.
Well, that was part of. I don't know what year that was. It may have been 61. Could well have been. I think maybe earlier than that. But Jones said that Jones's teacher was Sterling Maiden. And Jones, and back in time, he talks about his 7 lean years. Well, lean years were from age 14 to 21. That's not too lean. But he always talked, he said he used to run back to Sterling Maiden every time he had a problem. And so he said that during that period of time, Sterling Maiden tried to teach him how to correct himself, how to when he's having a bad shot or having problems in a round, how to manage his game and how to play during that period of time so he didn't put himself out of the tournament or he could perform the best he could with what he had that day. And so that's what Jack Grout always taught me too. And he always said, you need to be able to correct yourself. Jack Grout came to 50 tournaments, 100 tournaments during my lifetime. But he never once stepped foot on the practice tee. He would be back in the gallery or back in a bleachers or somewhere. If I wanted something, I could go back and talk to Jack Grout. But he was just there in support because he wanted me, if I had a problem, to fix my own problem. So that when I got to the golf course, if I had a problem, I could fix it on the golf course. And I think that's why I became a pretty decent golfer because I absolutely was able to fix myself. And I never worried if I was in the last round of a U.S. Open and I was 1 shot in the lead or 1 shot in the lead and I didn't like what I was doing, I changed it right then. Now, that's a pretty dangerous thing to do sometimes because
which is a rarity. Golfers don't do that.
Most golfers won't do it. But I'd do it but I would always do it in a way that I would know what I had to do. I would go back to the fundamentals, and I would make that adjustment that I had to make, but I would make it in a way that if I had a hole where I had big trouble on the left, I'd make sure I favored the right. So if I had a problem and I put it out to the right a little bit, I really wouldn't be in too much trouble, and I certainly wouldn't get too aggressive, or if I had a very narrow hole with dangerous situation, I maybe would take the driver out of the bag on that hole while I was trying to learn. And it would take me usually 2 or 3 holes to get that change back into my swing where I had confidence to go ahead and play again. But it served me well a lot of times in a lot of big tournaments to be able to make that adjustment on the golf course.
To close the loop on Bobby Jones.
I'm sorry?
I said to close the loop on Bobby Jones.
Yeah.
What about giving him your winning ball from your first Masters championship
I felt
makes it like one of the most emotional
Well,
moments?
I felt like it was a little silly. Because I mean, it's oddly, nobody's ever asked me that question. When I came off the 18th green, Ralph Hutchinson, who was then the announcer on the 18th green, Ralph I'd known him for 100 years. He grew up with Jack Grouse, as a matter of fact. Ralph says, "Jack, he says, save that ball and give it to Bobby Jones at the presentation." Jones didn't want the golf ball at the presentation. And so, anyway, I said, okay. I mean, I was 23 years old. I didn't know any different. So I got done with the presentation and said, "Mr. Jones, I'd like to present the golf ball that I finished with." I mean, he probably took it a lot better than I felt like an idiot giving it to him. I said, who would he care about my golf ball about? Anyway, that was the story.
Your kind of mentality and mindset, it was interesting. I read a quote, November 8th, 1961, you turned pro, and in response to a question about your goals, your career goals, you said, quote, to be the greatest golfer the world has ever seen.
I don't think that was my quote.
You don't think that was your quote?
No, I've never said that, because I don't believe I don't believe you can compare generations. Totally. I've always said I wanted to be the best golfer I could be.
Okay.
I mean, the best of my time, or the best guy, I wanted to fulfill my ability as a golfer. If I could do the best I could be, somebody else can make the call whether Bobby Jones or Ben Hogan or Walter Hagen or Tiger Woods or whoever's the best. Somebody can make that judgment some other time. But I wanted to be as the best I could be. Period.
Well, with that as context, what do you think separates being a great professional golfer from being the best of a generation?
Well, I always did it by major championships. That was always how you measured. Jones with 13 major championships. I think Walter Hagen had 11 major championships.
But I mean, outside of the numbers, what is it about the quality, like the work ethic, or like what do you think actually separates?
I really don't know. I mean, I think that I leave that to somebody else. I mean, all I can do is put the best record I could put up on the board. And I felt like I'm maybe not the best and most objective person to determine how good I was. I let somebody else or a group determine how good I was. I just do the best I can. And I always felt like there was only one person I could control. And that was me. I said, who was your toughest competitor? I says, it was me. Because I could never control anybody else. All I could do is prepare myself the best I could, and all I could do is try to use that to the best of my ability when I played. If I did that, I never minded getting beat if I prepared properly. If I prepared, did what I thought was the best, didn't do something stupid, and somebody played better, fair enough, well done. And that's always the way I felt. So it's the same way as judging your career. You go back and look at your career. What did you do? How did you do it? What were your goals? What did you try to do? And if somebody else is judged better, then that's okay. I mean, not everybody judges me as being the best golfer that's ever played. There's other people that would say it would be Tiger. Others would say it would be Hogan. Others would say it would be Jones. That's okay. But all I know is as long as I can do everything within my ability to perform my best, and I don't think I probably did. I think I probably could have been better. But I also raised a family. I have 5 kids, 22 grandkids. I've had a business. I had a lot of friends. I enjoyed other things I do, and golf was part of my life, not my whole life. And that to me was important.
But even with all of that going on, you still, I'd imagine, have to have had a pretty single-minded commitment to golf to have the success that you had. How do you think you were able to develop that?
I think you had to be. All golfers are selfish. They have to be. I think in an individual sport, you've got to be considerate about what you're doing, and what you're doing is being important. That's why Barbara was so important. She understood that. She understood that I couldn't yield that situation. It had to be my dominant thing while I was trying to participate. And I forgot which question was, but I can
about how you were able to develop that single-minded
I don't know how I was.
commitment.
I was probably just lucky that my mind was such that I could focus and I could keep it on what I was doing. I didn't have a problem keeping my mind on what I was doing all day long. But I always made sure that I always rested my mind while I was playing. In other words, what I mean by that is, and I think Hogan did a little bit that way. I got a great lesson from Hogan in 1960 when I played with him at Cherry Hills.
About what?
When I was a 20-year-old kid. We'd go play, and Ben Hogan was probably the most focused person you ever want to watch. And Hogan would hit his tee shot, or I'd hit my tee shot, and he would never say anything unless it was a good shot. And he knew if Ben Hogan said it was a good shot, it had to be a good shot because he didn't pass out bouquets. And so, but he would then turn and we'd have a conversation going down the fairway. We'd take our mind off of that and doing something else. We'd get about 50, 60 yards from the ball. He got his focus back on what he was doing. In other words, he rested his mind. And I did that a lot during my career. I also, a lot of times, I would start to get nervous and tense, and I'd come down near the end of a tournament, and I would just stop, and maybe the 13th, 14th, 15th fairway, and I'd just stop and take a big breath, look around me, and I'd see all these people having fun, all these people following me, and out there watching me try to perform, and I'm saying, man, this is what I tried to do. This is why I'm here. I said, just enjoy this moment and have fun with it and do it. It would relax me, allow me to get my concentration back and able to move forward. I did that a lot. And so, I mean, I think that to somebody say, put your mind up for 5 hours and just keep going, I think you have to you just can't do it. I think you have to rest a little bit in the middle of it, but the ability to get your concentration back and get back into it too.
How important was it to you to always prepare more than the competition?
Well, I found what the result was. I mean, I remember I started doing it and I started winning golf tournaments, and I'm thinking 1960. I'm getting old. I think it was either 64 or 65. We were playing at Belle Reve, and
in St. Louis.
Yeah. And Gary Player was going to go play the week before, and I said, Gary, what are you doing? I said, why are you over here? I said, don't you want to win the U.S. Open? I said, come on, you come with me this week. Let's go prepare yourself for a golf tournament. So we went and we spent a whole week, the week before Belle Reve, playing the golf course and so forth. And Gary ended up winning the golf tournament. He prepared better than I did, which is okay. Gary's a close friend of mine and a wonderful guy, and I wish him much success, I always have. But he prepared better than I did. But I always felt like, as long as I can prepare, as long as I get all the elements of the tournament out of the way prior to the tournament starting, then my own focus will be totally on playing the event, not worrying about all the outside things, how deep the rough is, how narrow the fairways are, how fast the greens, how hard the greens are, etc. All those kind of things. I get that out of the way. Then all I had to concentrate and worry about is how I played and how I played the course.
Why do you hate losing more than you love winning?
Well, I don't think anybody likes to lose. I haven't found anybody who likes to lose. If you do, you can do that all day long. But the part I don't like about losing is if I didn't prepare myself properly to win. And as I said to you earlier, I don't mind somebody beating me if they played better. That's fine. That's fair enough. That's what it's all about. But if it's because of my efforts of not preparing and not performing to my ability, then I have a problem with it. That's what I hate. It's not that I hate to lose. It's that I hate that I didn't perform and do the job that I'm supposed to do while I'm there.
I was talking to one of your friends the other day who was telling me about your Bahamas fishing trips that you go on regularly, and it's, I guess, always a group that goes down with you, and you guys went out for the day. End of the day, Barbara had caught the biggest fish, and everybody's doing their own thing back at the place wherever you guys were staying, and after a little bit of time passes, nobody knew where you were, and he said you'd gotten the guy to take you back out to go fishing again because you couldn't handle that you hadn't caught the biggest fish that day.
Well, that would be a story. That wouldn't be accurate.
Really? I mean, okay.
But that's all right.
But the CEO of your company, John, is telling me even the little potato toss things you have in the office, like if somebody beats you in that, like it just drives you crazy.
I don't like to get beat no matter what I do. I mean, but if somebody beats me, plays better, that's fine. But Barbara does quite well. She fly fishes very well, and she always has a knack about catching fish, and so we always have a little bit of a competition who ends up getting the biggest fish at the end of the week, and quite often she's got it, and frankly, I'm quite happy with that.
You are.
I'm not. I really don't have that. That's not where I make my living. So if my wife catches a bigger fish than I do, I'm happy for her. However, if I've got a couple of guys that are competitive and with me, yeah, I want to catch more and I want to catch the biggest ones.
I mean, how into it will you get?
Well, I get into it a lot. But I mean, I just do what I do. I mean, I'm a decent fly fisherman. I'm not a great fly fisherman, but I'm a decent fly fisherman. And and bonefish is what I think is probably the most difficult of all fishing. So we get into that, and some days you have a good day and you might catch 25 fish. Some days if you catch one, you've done very well. Conditions change, and so but if I can catch that one, I want to make sure it's a bigger fish than somebody else's.
What about pressure situations made you love them so much?
I don't know. I think that it's like everybody says, when you come up to 18, how can you handle the pressure? I said, what do you mean handle the pressure? That's the fun. The fun of it's no fun to come up to the 18th hole on Sunday at noon and finish 45th in the golf tournament. That's not much fun. What's fun is to come in at about 6 o'clock, coming down the stretch with all the pressure on who's going to win or not going to win. That's what's fun. That's what you're there for. That's what you prepare for. If that wasn't it, I probably never would have played golf, because I really enjoyed that. It's the competition and the pressure on me, on the field, the course, the tournament, what's going on. I love that. I just love that arena. It was a fun arena to be in and try to. Did I always win? No, of course not. But I won a fair number of times.
We were talking about concentration earlier. When you play your best golf, or when you were playing your best golf, what would you be thinking about?
Could be anything. I mean, I never really focused 100% on what I was doing. I go along, and I remember once I was playing at Oak Hill, and Barbara, I always knew where she was in the gallery, and so I got done with the round that day, and I said, Barbara, when we got up to the 14th green, where were you? She says, what do you mean? She says, well, you weren't where you always are. And she says, how? I said, I stopped and talked to such. I said, well, you weren't there, were you? I said, no. So I mean, I notice things outside, and I pay attention to things. I mean, I'm no different than any other guy. If there's a good-looking girl walk along, I want to see the good-looking girl, And if there's something unusual happens, I want to see what's going on. I mean, I'm not totally focused on. As I told you earlier, I like to have my mind wander a little bit, but so that when I come back to focus, I focus on what I need to focus on. But my mind is clear to do that.
Why are you more proud of a good round you played when you were hitting the ball badly than a great round you played when you were hitting the ball well?
Well, I'm not more proud of it, but I'm very proud that I've been able to do that. I probably played more good rounds of golf not having my A game than I have having my A game. You don't have your A game very often, not very many times. And so when you don't have your A game, that's what Bobby Jones was talking about. You need to be able to figure out what I always call my swing du jour. You know, what am I going to do that day? How am I swinging the club? Every day's different. And I mean, I'd be maybe great one day, and the next day I can't hit my hat. And so I got to figure out how to take, when I go to the practice tee before I play, I have where I want to be, and I have my swing du jour over here. And my objective is to bring those together before I get to the first tee. And so when I get to the first tee, I'm as solid as I can be. And that sometimes takes 15 shots, sometimes takes 40 or 50 shots. But sometimes I don't get there. And if I don't get there, then I say, okay, this is what I've got today. Let's see what I can do. And I've shot a lot of 64s and 5s where I had that game that I wasn't sure about, and I had to, sort of manage it through the day.
Explain how you win 6 Masters and never get a green jacket until much later on.
Well, that's kind of an unusual story. When I won the Masters in 1963, at the presentation they brought out a coat, because obviously they don't know who's going to win the tournament, but they brought out a coat that was a 46 long. Well, it fit me like an overcoat. I'm a 43 regular. And so when I came back the next year, nobody said a word about getting fit for my coat. But they put a coat in my locker, which actually was Tom Dewey's coat, former governor of New York, lost to Truman and for the presidency. And Dewey had passed, and so they said, here, Tom Dewey's obviously gone, and he'd try his coat on, it fit me perfect. And so I suppose for the next 20 years, I wore Tom Dewey's coat. Nobody ever said a word to me. Every time I won it, I just put back on Tom Dewey's coat. And finally, in 1998, Jack Stevens, then chairman at Augusta, we're sitting down and having a little sandwich at lunch a week before the tournament, and I told him the story, and he says, "You what?" I said, "You've been here, you've won this tournament 6 times, and nobody's ever given you a green jacket?" I said, "No, sir, no, they haven't." He says, so anyway, I went home, came back for the weekend, a little note in my locker, "You will go to the pro shop and be fit for your green jacket." So that was 1998. And that's when they did because they were doing an award for me. They built a water fountain between 16 and 17, which has my record on it and some things on it. And they dedicated it that year, so I got a new jacket there. Still the same jacket. I haven't had another one since.
You said not winning your first U.S. Open was one of the best things to ever happen to you. Why?
When I didn't win at Cherry Hills in 1960, it was my first U.S. Open. I played in 57, 58, 59, then 60 was at Cherry Hills. And I played with Hogan the last round. I played the last two rounds with him. And had I won that tournament, I was a 20-year-old amateur. I was a cocky enough kid that my head would have probably swollen out to about here and scratching my ears out here. And I don't think I would have settled down for a long time to really do the things I needed to do to be better. If I noticed, because I lost that tournament, I learned a lot from it. I learned that other people are having the same problems I have. I'm learning that other people get nervous too. I'm learning that you can't come down the stretch and not realize that everybody else is making bogeys too. They're having problems. So you don't learn those things if you just win. And so by losing that, I looked back on it. I said, Arnold and I we kid each other a lot because Arnold won that tournament in 1960. And I told him, I said, "Palmer, if I hadn't shot 39 the last 9 holes at Cherry Hills, nobody ever heard of you." And he laughed. He said, "Yeah." He says, "If I hadn't 3-putted 9 times at Oakmont, nobody ever heard of you either."
There you go.
So we all have our things where we do things, and we lose and we win. Right. We know where to go with it. But I just felt like would I have liked to have won that tournament and won as an amateur at 20 years old? You betcha. But do I think that was probably in my best interest in the long run not to have won? I think it was.
for all the tournaments you've won and mementos and mementos and mementos that you've gotten over the years, what about a money clip from a 1963 driving competition made it such a keeper?
Well, I happen to have it in my pocket. I always do. This, this money clip was a money clip that I won in 1963, Dallas Athletic Club, and it says driving distance winner. They used to have a PGA driving contest. So in 1963, I hit it 341 yards, 17 inches. I won I don't know what was second, but I won the driving contest. I've carried this in my pocket for 53 years, that money clip. Can you imagine not losing a money clip in 53 years?
No.
Please, I don't want to lose it. I still don't want to lose it. But anyway, the money clip was something that I got a big kick out of. I was using a 11-degree driver that was made in about, let's see, it was one of the drivers that I'd used. Let's see, McGregor made, I think, 13 drivers for me in 1961 as an amateur. And I broke the face out of 12 of them. And just split them apart because I hit it too hard. And that was a Survivor. So I had that Survivor, and it was 42 3/4 inches long, which today, everything's 45 inches long. And it was, everybody hit the same golf ball. We hit a group of Titleist golf balls, everybody hit. And so I was very proud of that. It was because of that little driving contest, I've kept this thing in my pocket for a long time.
The 1986 Masters, walking up to that 18th green, what made it so emotional for you?
1986, every time I walked up previous to that, I really sort of thought I was going to win or expected to win or expected to be right there. Maybe not always winning, but being right there. In 1986, I went to the tournament with, I wouldn't say high expectations. I'd played reasonable that spring. I hadn't won anything, but I'd played reasonable. That particular year, we went to the house we were staying. I had a couple other couples with us, and one of them was John Montgomery, who was a longtime friend. Put a little note on the locker that Nicklas is done. It was an article. Nicklas is done, all washed up, so forth and so on. Clubs are rusty, so forth. Tom McAllister from Atlanta, I don't know, Constitution, I guess, probably wrote the article. And my mother and my sister came to the Masters for the first time since they came the first year I played in 1959. Never came again. And why they picked 1986, I have no idea, but they did. My son Jackie was on the bag for the first time. Just a lot of elements that came through. My son Steve called me on Sunday morning, and he said, "What do you think, Pops?" And I said, "Steve, I think 66 will tie, 65 will win. Number I got in mind, go shoot it." So he threw the 65 into my head by saying that's the number he had in mind. So a lot of things happened. And I was playing okay. I had, going to the last round, I shot 74, 71, 69. Going to the last round, I was 4 shots behind, but had 8 fellas in front of me. And not insurmountable. I felt like I might be able to get there. And I didn't get a very good start in the round. I made 1 birdie and 1 bogey through the first 8 holes. So I really wasn't making anything happen. I was getting a little disappointed. Stood on the 9th green and had about a 12-foot putt for birdie. And all of a sudden, a big roar got up from the 8th green. Ballesteros had hold his 3rd shot for an eagle. Before I could hit my putt, another big roar went up. Tom Kite hold his 3rd shot for an eagle. All of a sudden, I turned around. It sort of relaxed me. And I turned around to the crowd and I said, "They made a lot of noise up here. Let's see what kind of noise we can make here." I knocked the putt in, the crowd went wild. Made that, shot 35 the front 9, then I birdied 10, 11, got myself in a chance, bogeyed 12, which maybe had a good thing because it maybe relaxed me a little bit. Then I knew I had to go back to work, birdied 13, par 14. Then I stood in the middle of the 15th fairway with my son Jack. And I had 214 yards to the hole, and I said, "How far do you think 3 will go here?" And I said, I don't mean club. And he says, "I think it'll go a long way, Dad." So I hit a 4-iron, hit it in about 12 feet and made it for eagle. Birdied 16 with one of the best iron shots I ever hit. And then I stood on 17 tee, and I knew that I was close, but I knew Ballesteros was still ahead of me. And then all of a sudden there was this horrible sound at 15. I knew exactly what happened. It was a sound of cheer and a sound of moan. So you knew that he hit the ball in the water. And because some people were cheering for me and some people were sad for him. And I hate that sound. It's just because you always know what it is. But anyway, I knew that I was now right there. And I birdied 17 with about a 12-foot putt. And then so I was leading the tournament for the first time. And then I won the tournament, of course, with my son Jackie on the bag. And Jackie has said many times, he says, you know, here, I had all the things happening, yet I went to him. And he says, it made me feel like somebody important. And he was important to me. He was my son, and he was on my bag, and that was very important to me.
What do you think the interaction that you had with Jackie on that day was that most sticks out to you all these years later?
Most what?
The interaction that the two of you had that day that most sticks out all these years later?
Well, all day long, Jackie kept saying to me, and he sort of got, he would sit there and say, okay, Dad, keep your head still, knock it in. And finally I knocked in a couple putts, so he kept saying that every hole. Every time I had a putt, that's what he would say to me. So, and he was afraid to tell me, he said, he was afraid to tell me that I was doing well. I mean, I knew I was, because he said, every time I seem to tell you you're doing well, we make a mistake. So he had his little superstitions of going along the whole round, and we were having, and I can tell what he was doing. He was having fun, but he was so excited about the chance of winning that golf tournament that, you know, he wasn't going to do anything that could jeopardize my chances of being able to win. He was going to make sure that he stayed right where he should be. And so, and of course, I loved having him there too. Anytime you do something with one of your sons or your daughter, it's always very special.
And 46 years old when you won that tournament. Nobody wins at 46 years old, especially
some people
the
do,
Masters.
But and Jackie was 23. Just a kid, just out of North Carolina.
Does it seem like it's been 30 years?
It went by pretty fast. My body knows it's been 30 years because my body doesn't like to perform too well anymore.
Arnold Palmer, how would you describe the level of competition that existed between the two of you?
Well, you know, Arnold and I started back, first time I played with Arnold was 1958. We had a driving contest on the first hole, and I'd hit it over the first green and won the driving contest. But Arnold shot 63 that day or something. I shot 67 or something. And Arnold when I won the driving contest, I'm quick to point that out. He was quick to point out that he shot 63 and beat me. So our competition started right there. And the next time we played together was 1962 at Phoenix. And Arnold, we played together in the last round. Arnold was way ahead in the tournament. And after we walked off the 17th green, and he walked over and put his arm around my shoulder, which he didn't have to do. It was very nice. And he said, you know, you can finish second here. And he says, just take your time. It's a par 5. Just take your time, relax. You'll make birdie here, and you can do it, which was a really nice gesture. I mean, he won by 12 shots. But I made birdie at the last hole, and I finished second. I mean, I won $2,300 that week, you know, for second place. That's a big win. And so anyway, we went on and played. I didn't play with Arnold again until we played the U.S. Open at Oakmont. And we played together, I think we played the first 2 rounds together, and then we played, obviously, the playoff. And so Arnold knew, and he was obviously a little embarrassed by his gallery a little bit, because he said that many times. He said they were a little bit over the top for what went on. And but I didn't hear it. I was a 22-year-old kid with blinders on wanting to win a golf tournament. And so I never heard any of it. But he couldn't have been nicer that week. And I remember coming down, there's a picture that shows Arnold standing next to me on the practice tee before the playoff. And Arnold had walked over to me, and it was sort of tradition in the U.S. Open that the players in the winter got the gate. I mean, because it was the charge for the 5th day. Mm-hmm. And so Arnold said, he says, he came over to me, and I think he was making a nice gesture to a young kid. He says, he says, you want to play for the gate or you want to split the gate? He says, what do you want to do? I said, what do you want to do? He says, I don't really care. I'm just trying to see what you're more comfortable with. I said, well, I don't want to do that to you. We'll just play for it. Well, of course, I won, so I ended up getting the gate as well as winning the golf tournament. Gate was like $1,200. I mean, it was a huge gate. And but Arnold, and of course, I've always said many times, I said, I've always had to fight Arnold's gallery, his army, but I never had to fight Arnold. Arnold was always a gentleman and a friend, a competitor, and he loved the competition as much as I love the competition. We still compete today. No matter what we do, we turn around and we laugh about it like crazy, because it's like, hey, AP, you're 86 years old, I'm 76. We're still competing. He says, yeah, I know, and it's fun. I said, it is fun.
I was talking to somebody close to Arnold the other day who was there for this. Your son's tournament qualifying school weekend ends up, unfortunately, being when Arnold's wife, Winnie, passed away, so you and Barbara missed the last day of the tournament to fly to go to the funeral. After the funeral, you and Arnold are sitting in front of the TV watching your son qualify for the PGA Tour.
We were at the after the ceremony. We went back to wherever we had a reception, and I sort of tried to see if I could sneak off to see, because the qualifying school was on television, and so I didn't want to turn the television on. I didn't think. Arnold came by and he says, "Come on, we're turning this TV on." He said, "We'll see how Gary's doing." So, that was pretty neat.
You've said you view him like a brother now. Why?
See, we've been like a brother, absolutely. Arnold and I have been great friends for years. I mean, we as I say, we've competed from day one. We always will compete. But that's what made us such great friends, because what we do, we could go out and try to beat each other's brains out on the golf course, shake hands at the end of the round, and says, let's go to dinner. So we get the wives and we go to dinner.